Hey guys, Mark Foreman again. This will be episode number 14 of Memaw's Table, the adventure in building a new dining table for my wife. So, as you can see, it's now standing on its legs. Yesterday at about 5:15, the legs touched down. So, it's now officially a table. I got a lot of work still to do. And that's what I'm going to kind of talk about on this episode. Some of the fixes I'm going to have to do and some additional uh, things I want to do to it before we even start finishing, putting the finish on. So, let me just show you some of the things. For example, well, first, you can see there are some pretty significant gaps, but I was expecting that, and I have a few ideas to resolve that. But also, I hardly see it, but I can. This darkness right here on the cherry next to the maple there, that's glue. And the reason the glue hasn't sanded off is there's a slight um, height difference between these two triangles. So what I have to do is get the sander and sand it down right there, and that'll get into the glue and knock out all the glue. Here's another one right here, same situation. The pencil mark is there, I just circled it. Right there, you can see the glue on the end of that walnut. So there's a slight height difference between the walnut and the walnut of the triangle. Moving down. Oh, by the way, I did replace all of the mini triangles. There's no more holes in the table. I glued all those in last night. But something that's happened between when I put all the C-clamps on the bottom, and I'll show, or C-channels, I'll show you those here in just a minute. I put those on yesterday around noon or so, got them all in. Sometime between then and this morning when I came out, we got a crack. And it's not a crack. I'll talk about all that here in just a minute, but there's a whole lot of talk about this being end grain and this being regular grain wood, the issues that that's going to cause. But I think this crack happened because when I put those C-channels on and screwed them all in, there might have been some, height differences on the bottom of the table. And so when I forced that bottom of the table to be flat, it gave some tension to the top, and that's where that crack came from. We'll have to fix it, but again, I got several ideas to work that. So let me show you the bottom. There we go. So you can see I routed out some slots for the legs and the C-channels. There are 4 C-channels. There's one over there about 6 inches in from the edge. I got 2 in the middle. That tape is there holding in a mini triangle that's still gluing up. There's my other leg, flush mounted to the bottom, and there's that last C-channel. Again, I think when I torqued all these things down, it forced some movement that went through to the top of the table. All right. Now, how bad is my problem with all these little lines? Well, I figured out a way to show you that. Watch this. Turn off the lights. Let me plug in. Basically, it's a space heater that I put under there. Very bright. Now watch this. Look at all those. They're through and through gaps that I'm going to have to somehow fix. Slide it over a little bit, and I'll show you a little bit more. And just to show you, it's not just that end of the table. It's over here as well. Okay, turn off the space heater. All right, last thing I want to talk about, and it all seems to come down to cracks. The elephant in the room. There's been several little discussion threads on my previous posts about do not mix end grain, and that when I ask what's end grain, that's these triangles here. The wood is going up and down essentially. You're looking at the end of each one of these little pieces of wood that make up this triangle mosaic. Well, wood tends to expand across the grain. Like this walnut here, you can easily see the grain. It goes that way. So this walnut, depending on temperature, humidity, things like that, is going to expand and contract across the grain. So this way. My mosaic is going to want to expand and contract up and down. So this line here between these two different directions of grain is going to be a tension point. All of the channels on the bottom have slotted holes, not just an actual hole for the screw, which allows that expansion and contraction to move a little bit. Well, what doesn't move is like the glue between these two pieces of walnut, the glue between the walnut and the mosaic, all of the glue that makes up the mosaic. There's going to be some movement. I looked it up, did a lot of the Googling, different types of wood and the expansion rates and the width of the wood and the thickness of the wood. I was told through my research, the walnut is going to expand and contract upwards of 1/4 of an inch. The problem with this mosaic, it's got walnut, it's got cherry, it's got maple, it's got a little bit of red oak. They all expand and contract differently. Now, the breakfast table that I made out of this pattern, round, put a picture up. It hasn't shown any signs of, cracking. And I think I did that like 6-8 months ago. So I got to watch this like a hawk. And if it turns out that these tension points between the walnut and the mosaic are just not going to cooperate or not going to get along, I have a solution. But I'm going to wait on it until I actually see I have to do it. It's going to involve cutting the walnut off of the pattern, cutting this walnut off the pattern, inserting, I'm thinking some kind of metal, to where you can see a nice edge, the color of the metal will give a contrast, and not glue it at all. Put some sort of clamping from the bottom that holds it in place, but since it's not glued, it can move. That's down the road. I want to see how bad it gets, before I make that call, because that's going to involve taking the table all the way back apart. I don't want to do that. We have a 3-week pause before we actually have any chance of finishing the table, because I've ordered a really cool rounded router bit for the edge that I saw on a woodworking YouTuber, content provider, whatever you call them, Cam with Blacktail Studio. and I'll put a little clip here, and I'll put a link as well to his page. Fantastic guy to watch. I've learned a lot just watching him, come up with ideas just watching him. But anyway, the reason I mention that is he highlighted this router bit on one of his episodes and put a link to it. Well, the company that makes the router bits had no idea he was going to do that, and he's got over 1 million viewers, so they were swamped with orders. And that's a great problem. You're in business, you get a bunch of orders. So they're 3 weeks behind on production before my router bit will even ship, and hopefully they hold to the 3 weeks. So in the meantime, I'm going to keep sanding. I'm going to keep thinking. I'm going to do some experimenting with sawdust and epoxy, or sawdust and glue, or just clear epoxy or black epoxy, coming up with ways to fill all these cracks where it's a nice, smooth, continuous surface. That's all I got for now. It's a Sunday afternoon. It's a beautiful Sunday. The 18th? Never can remember the date. Got any questions, any comments? I even take criticism. Just keep it mature, I guess you'd say. We'll talk to you next time.